Hey, friend. Hey. Hey, Cole. Hey, welcome.
I'm good. I'm
Good
good.
to see you. Welcome back.
Always.
Welcome back. Good to have you, Mike.
It's hard to say we're back most of the time, but in this instance, it's absolutely not. We've been here a couple times. Jimmy, thank you for welcoming us back here to the track.
Oh, great to have you back. And Mike, I really appreciate you taking the time to visit, to come and check it out. There were cars on track when you came before. We're a little quieter than now, but we're going to ramp it back up here in a couple of weeks with our IMSA race.
Yes, sir. So I want to introduce you guys, or allow me to reintroduce myself for real to the serial CEO. I know that over the last 5-6 years since I left San Francisco, the brand and everything really has evolved. And so I really wanted to take some time out as we reintegrate the fellowship and growing what we're doing with ECN, the serial CEO, back to the foundation of this philosophy and getting back to that elite mindset philosophy that being a CEO isn't just a role or a position, but it's more so a mindset towards life that we can all adopt, that we are the chief decision makers in our life. We all deal with different circumstances, different difficulties, and different advantages, right? And it's about how we decide to approach those life circumstances that dictates who we actually are gonna be, right? And here today I've got Mr. Jimmie McMillian. I want you to give a very quick introduction to yourself and your role here with the IMS, but I definitely want to get into your life story as well because I think it's something powerful our listeners can learn from.
Thanks, Mike. I want to just compliment you on this whole concept of serial CEO because it's really driven a lot of the things that have happened in my life. This thought that we are each a business enterprise in and of ourselves, and that like a CEO, you know, we need a board of directors to help develop and train and provide guidance and advice. We need a business plan for our life on how we're going to go and move. And sometimes that plan changes. So I just think this entire philosophy is in total alignment with what I believe and the message that I give to my mentees and the people I mentor and develop in terms of how they need to structure. Again, my name is Jimmie McMillian. I'm the Chief Diversity Officer and Senior Corporate Counsel for Penske Entertainment, which is comprised of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, this beautiful facility, IndyCar LLC, which is our series that races at 16 different locations, and IMS Productions, which is our film crew that films all of our races. A lawyer somehow that got transitioned into doing what it comes naturally, which is working on behalf of the community to make sure that we have diverse, equitable opportunities and inclusion at one of the largest single-day sporting events in the world, and certainly one of the most historical sports in all of Indiana and maybe across the world.
Yeah, I think that Indiana and the IMS is really a picture of Indiana and Indianapolis because this city is oftentimes slept on, I feel like, by the people that are from here. But then when you look at the opportunities, the corporate, the businesses that are headquartered here, the annual events that happen here, Indianapolis is a major player, not just economically, but even in the entertainment world. And I think that the opportunities that are here, a lot of people may leave the city for. And for that reason, I really do appreciate the work that you're doing here at the track of bringing people and showing them, right? Not just telling them what's available or putting something online, but literally giving people a reason to come spend time and discover it.
Well, I think it's so important that people know what the opportunities are. I think, you know, in places like Indiana, the problem is, particularly if you are not from here, trying to develop the relationships to develop whatever passion that you have. You know, it can be very insular, where if you didn't grow up here, you didn't go to school here, you didn't go to one of the universities and colleges here, you might come here and feel like there's only a couple of companies. You know, if I'm not at Lilly, I'm not at Cummins, I'm not at Allison's, I'm not at one of those big 5-6 companies and somehow I failed or somehow, you know, I can't pursue my goals. And that's a challenge. And what it takes is, to your point, that CEO mindset. How am I going to get connected? How am I going to join the organizations? How am I going to find the right people in the right places that are willing to open doors for me and navigate for me a pathway to success in this environment? We're not Chicago. We're not Dallas. We're not DC. We're not that place where you ride down the highway and it's 10 major businesses every 5 feet like New York. But here, the opportunities are a little bit more guarded. You just have to use that mindset, like you said, of thinking about what is my plan and then aligning that with folks who can open those opportunities for you.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the ability to forge your own path to it, like you said, the path may not be paved, but it's definitely there if you're connected with people that know how to put you in the right position, right? That have done that. I want to get into your path and some of the things that have led you to where you are today. I know that you're not from Indianapolis, right?
No, I'm not. I'm from the south side of Chicago. Grew up in an area called the Wild Hundreds. Had my father and mother. My mother was a school teacher, worked in Chicago public schools for over 30 years teaching children with disabilities, and was phenomenal at it. My father didn't work or rarely worked and had an alcohol problem. And growing up, my mother just pushed on me education, education, education. She was from the South, from Mississippi, and all of her brothers and sisters went to college. My father actually went to 17 universities and never graduated, and went to Vietnam and came back, and he just had some issues. And so I grew up in an environment where every year I'd go to school, and at some point they'd get into a fight, he'd get drunk, and we'd be on the run. So you go to my mother's house, there's pictures of me on bales of hay, and there's a picture of me with city backgroundscapes from when we would run, and I didn't roll in school down there and come back. But my mother never let off on me. Like, it was unacceptable not to do my best in school, period. And I ended up getting in a gifted program, tested into this program that allowed you to get high school credit in 7th and 8th grade at Morgan Park High School. And things were still crazy at home, but my mother kept saying, if you do well, you can get out of here. You can go to college early. When I was in high school, one of my friends, he gets shot in a drive-by shooting, my best friend, Sean Newstetter. And at that point, I was like 15 years old. My mother said, all right, we got to get you out of Chicago. And I ended up going to Michigan State at 16 years old, even actually started school the day after my high school graduation at a program called the Super Program. It was an early admissions program for minority students. Wow. And went there, did extremely well right out the gate, ended up actually pledging my fraternity Kappa Alpha Psi when I was 16, engaged, enthused, loved it, but really didn't know why I was going to school other than I don't want to go home. I don't want to be in that environment. And I thought that things would get better at home. They didn't. My father eventually tried to shoot me in the door. Came up to the dorm. I was a resident assistant. Like, I was doing super well. I had to hide out in Detroit. In the dorm. Had to hide out in Detroit with some friends of mine till my stepbrother, who's my brother, who's 9 years older than me. We share the same father, different mother. He was going to IU, Indiana University, Bloomington. Came down in the middle of the night, got me. I left everything I had in Michigan. He came up here and enrolled me into Indiana University. And then about 3 months later, my father and mother get into a fight over remote control, and my father shot my mother 3 times. And so then I flunked out of school. And at that point, no money, no real anything, no car, and just trying to figure it out. And ended up working at Best Buy, was a security guard at Best Buy, and then I worked at Firestone, and I was fixing flat tires. Just working in the garage, and tried to work my way up to assistant manager. And during that time, it was the guys down at Firestone. They worked in Southern Indiana. They used to tease me. They used to listen to the NASCAR races in the garage. And I used to be like, I don't know anything about it. And they were talking about Dale Earnhardt and all this stuff. And I was like, this was not my reality. Like, I didn't listen to this. And they were like, we're going to take you to the race. We're going to take you to Brickyard 400. This was back when the Brickyard 400, they used to pack the stands back in the 80s and 90s. And so they brought me up to the race. And the minute I heard the cars crank up, I fell in love. And NASCAR became my favorite sport. And I would watch it all the time. And I would listen to it on the radio, and they would explain all the dynamics of the draft and what the cars were doing. And I worked at the shop, and the manager of that Firestone would ask me, a guy named Greg Brown, he used to ask me every day, what are you doing to get back in school? And I'd be like, nothing. Like, my dad was in jail. My mom lived, but she was staying with my father. She was going to go visit him in jail. They was getting back together. And I'm like making, you know, $11, $9, $10 an hour. And I'm like just trying to live. And then finally he introduced me to a man named George Telefaro. George Telefaro was the first African-American to play football in the NFL, and he went to Indiana University. And he's a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, and he used to get his car fixed at Firestone. So George came in one day and, you know, he said, hey, we need to get this guy back in school. That's what Greg told George. And George said, okay, tomorrow, or it's like next week, I want you to come to me. We're going to go on campus, and I'm going to help you get back in school. I owed student loans, had student loan debt. Had flunked out. I had failed 0 point of the semester. And I was like, this is impossible.
You gave up on it.
Yeah. I was just like, it's just not going to happen. But I had so much respect for him, I wasn't going to not go. So next, you know, I showed up. He was there. We walk around the administration building. He literally was just telling people, we're going to get him back in school, get him enrolled. It was like walking around with your great grandfather, and he's just waving a magic wand over people to convince them without any kind of real conversation, he needs to be back in school, using his credibility, using his brand, his accomplishments to help me get through my mistakes. And they showed me a way to get my student loans together. I paid my student loans for 3 months, a certain amount. I was able to borrow money again. They put me in an associate's program that allowed me to take independent study classes first, classes at home. And then once I made straight A's in those classes, I got automatically admitted to get back in school. And it was just all of those steps. He also introduced me to a guy named Kent Benson, famous basketball player. Got his car fixed at Firestone. He also helped me. And it was their guidance and mentorship of me in my failing business, which had failed and it shuttered the doors and bankrupt, that allowed me to realize that the store wasn't closed and that there was a lot left to do and there was a lot left to sell. And I ended up getting back in school and graduating. Applied for law school, got accepted. Applied to 9 law schools, got accepted to 7, and ended up going to IU McKinney. Did extremely well there. Clerked for Kiefer McGough. Graduated, clerked for the Indiana Supreme Court for Justice Frank Sullivan, who became like a father for me. Did that for 2 years, and then went on to Barnes & Thornburg, one of the largest law firms in the state of Indiana, where I was a litigator. Became a partner in that law firm. Was there for 12 years, and then decided to follow my passion and join this organization as its senior corporate counsel back in May of 2016, right before our 100th running. So I know that's a long story, but you know, I tell this story now, and like I tell kids, it's easy to tell it now, and you look and you think, oh, of course. But no, it wasn't of course. Like, I was broke. Yeah. Been broke a couple of times. This is not like it all worked out and everything went smooth up. That's not how life works. Life is up, down, up, down. I've been divorced twice. Oh, wow. And so, you know, cars break down. You short on rent money. You short on light bill money. I have 2 wonderful sons, twin boys, but we had to go through fertility treatments to have them and spend $60,000 and went through 2 miscarriages. And so, like, I tell this story and it sounds so smooth, but it was not in any way. Life is about being consistent in your desire to obtain a certain goal and live by a principle of I'm not going to quit and I'm not going to stop because I can't. I'm never going to stop trying to be great. I'm never going to be perfect, but I'm never going to stop trying to be great and trying to leave some legacy of greatness that my kids and my friends and everybody will remember and say, when he was here, he did everything he could. He left it all on the field to try to do his best and be his best.
I love that. I love that. I think there's 2 things that I really want to dive into your brain about time and vision, right? Because like you just gave this, you said you call it a long story. I call it a wonderful trajectory, right? And I really want to get your mindset on time, because whenever you're dealing with despair, you're dealing with loss, you're dealing with grief, that can be something where you feel like there's no end, right? And so, and then the connection with vision of what is the vision that you were able to begin to create for yourself, or whether you transposed it from George to yourself. What was the vision that allowed you to come out of these situations of loss to say, okay, I'm going to build for myself?
What's interesting is your vision is limited by your perspective and your exposure, right? So you can only see so far ahead from what you've been exposed to. My vision at some point was just to graduate and to graduate with the best grades I could get. My vision at some point was just to get back in school. My vision at some point was just, can I consistently pay my rent and not be behind? You know, some of my vision was tricking off money. Some of my vision was I want a car with rims and sounds. And so your vision is so skewed by, I've never traveled outside of, the Midwest. Or I've never been on a plane. I didn't. My first time really flying on a plane as an adult was when I was in law school trying to get a legal job. And so much of my vision was shaped by, all I want to do is be in a situation where I have peace. See, we don't understand that so many people, they are in situations where all they want is to have food to eat today. All they want is to have peace where nobody's yelling and screaming and arguing or fighting, or they're not under some threat, or they're not being physically abused. All I wanted was peace, control of my own situation so that I could have peace. Beyond that, those next steps I wasn't even aware of. And how that interfaces with time is, we don't know how much time we have left. As you get older, you start really getting pressed about, I might only have today. So let me make the most of the day. But when you're young, you think, I got plenty of time. I got days and years and months. I'm only 18, or I'm only 23, and those numbers, these low numbers and digits. Well, I'll be 49 next week. So, I'm starting to see the other side. That time assessment of, I think, really turned the clock for me was realizing, okay, I've already wasted time when I was out of school. And I start seeing my friends graduate and their lives moving. I start seeing other people's lives moving forward while I was still standing still. And that's when I felt like I'm running out of time. I need to make something shake. I need to make this happen. If I'm going to do it, I've got to do it now. And once that clicked, I realized every moment of my life is important. Every second I have here, I have to make the most of it, because tomorrow it could be over. I could lose it all.
Do you remember exactly when that crystallized and really got clear for you?
Certainly when I thought my mom was going to die. I was sitting on the hospital floor, and I found out because I was there when they got into the fight. And then I got into the fight. Then my mother told me to leave. So then I got in the car, drove here to Indianapolis, drove to my brother's. And when I got to my brother's house, he said, you gotta go back, man. Your dad shot your mom. So now I'm driving, 2.5 hours back. And as I'm on my way, my mind is blown. I go to the jail. Cook County Jail is right off the highway. Stop there for some reason. I still don't know why to this day. And they go get my dad, and he's on the other side of the glass. And he was like, look what you made me do. And so then I go to the hospital, and I'm sitting in the hallway, and they're like, she got shot 3 times. She got shot in the back, shot in the knee, shot in the shoulder. And they were like, we don't know if she's going to make it or not. It's too early. We're trying to figure it out. And I just remember sitting on the ground, promising God, if you save my mother, and this is real, man, if you save my mother, I will do everything I can to help as many people as I can. And I meant it. If you save my mother, I will get back in school. I just remember I'm going to get back in school. I'm going to do what I got to do. But I am going to help as many people as I can. And I commit to you I was going to do that. And I've tried to keep that promise ever since.
At that moment, it became bigger than you.
It became bigger than me, but I also realized my mother may never see me reach the potential that she worked for and lived for. And that just hurt me, man, like beyond belief, that I hadn't graduated from school. I'm messing around and all this. And she had poured so much into me. And I think as a kid, you don't appreciate what your parents put into you and what it means for them, for you, before they die, for them to just see you be successful. You have no concept of what your parents will be willing to sacrifice because you don't have kids. I have kids now, so I feel it now. But at the time, you just living life, taking advantage, eating, drinking, spending money. You're not realizing your parents are literally, a lot of parents, not all, are living to see you check off these marks of success so that you're going to be okay. And that generations behind you will be okay. And it was in that moment that I realized I'm about to lose that for her.
The ability to execute on my part of fulfilling what she gave me the opportunity to do.
Absolutely. Most powerful moment in my life to date was probably 2 years ago. My mother called, maybe 3 years ago, my mother called my sons into the kitchen, called me into the kitchen. We had just had dinner, and she made them stand there, and she told me, so I want y'all to hear me say this. Your father's a man now. He doesn't ask me for anything. He takes care of me. He takes care of you. He takes care of everybody. She went and checked off all the accomplishments I have to my son and said, I want you to know that your father is a real man. You don't have to look for nobody else as a role model. It's okay if you do, but you had a father that was a man, and he didn't. But he took it from scratch. He took the opportunities he had, and he became a man. It's the most powerful moment in my life for my mama to live, to be able to see me and say that.
That's the championship.
Absolutely. It means the world to me.
What would you say is like a character trait that you highly value? If it's like be disciplined or what is something that you work to be and that you've worked to be that you think everybody should live with?
Honesty. I can't tell you how many people I feel like look at the mirror, wake up, look in the mirror every day and lie to themselves about who they are and what they are and what they stand for and what they're about. Being true to yourself. You can't be true to others unless you're true to yourself. And so when I say honesty, it's being honest about what you're strong at and what you're not. If you can't be honest about that, then you can't learn how to be stronger at the things you're weak at. Honesty. Being able to be honest about your failures, being honest about some of your things that you do that are annoying, being honest about the things that you're good at, being honest with yourself is a key character trait. What are you talented at? What are you not talented at? It doesn't mean quit at the things that you think that you're not good at, but being honest about maybe I need to work on it. Right. And that trait of honesty, some people are just so fake, like just layers and layers of fakeness that is almost, if you're on social media, you just can't even fathom how many the person that you've created and this image that you've created that nobody could possibly do business with because it's not real. That character trait of, people always say, like, you tell people that you flunked out of school. Yes, it's honest. And I worked my way back in school. You tell people you've been divorced twice. Yes, that's honest. And I'm married a third time. I don't plan on getting divorced this time. I didn't plan on getting divorced the times before. You tell people that you lived check to check before. Yes, that's honest. If I don't realize that and say it out loud and manifest it, then how do I make sure I don't live check to check again? Like, those things that character trait of honesty seems so easy, but yet so hard for so many people. You lie to your wife, you lie to your kids, you lie to yourself, you lie to your parents, you lie to your employer. And what do you expect is going to be the result? You're going to live a lie and eventually it comes crashing down. So for me, it's trying to be as honest as I can in everything I do, sometimes to my own detriment. Because somebody may judge me and say, oh, well, he's not good enough, or he's not smart enough, or he's not talented enough. Okay, then that position wasn't for me. If you don't want the honest and real me, then you don't want me.
Yeah, I love that. You end up living in illusion when you live in delusion.
I feel like there are people that I deal with in my professional and life and personal life that the only way I can deal with it, I joke with my wife about it, is I have to say to myself, okay, it's time to step into fantasy land. It's like Alice in Wonderland. If I'm going to go to this meeting and run this meeting, or I'm going to go have this conversation with this person. I need to be fully prepared to immerse myself like Alice in Wonderland. I need to prepare myself for the movie they're in. Otherwise, I can't even relate to them, meaning that I have to feed a little bit of the lie that you think about yourself to even be able to get you to a place where I could talk to you about truth.
Yeah, within our brand, we got this concept called Isiko, which is the Zulu word for culture. And the thought behind it is that unless you're able to come to a common understanding, you can't establish culture. You can't establish clear communication, right? And so people who are living lies and lying to everyone around them, and it's more so about how things look than how they are, like being able to create something that's real is going to be difficult.
Absolutely. You cannot build on a false foundation. The building will stand for a little bit, but eventually that foundation will crumble. And so, from a character standpoint, I can only do business with you if we can have an honest relationship. And I find that honesty many times in people who are able to admit their failures, and people who admit their faults, people who are not trying to be necessarily right in every situation, but realizing that there's strength in being able to say, hey, I failed, I learned, I came back. Right. And, the time and time again, I see folks who immediately jump to the defense. In corporate situations, you're at work, you get criticized for a project. You immediately got 10 excuses for why it's not fair. I didn't get proper instruction. I need to find another job. Instead of first analyzing, is there anything that I could have done better? Is there any question that I should have asked? Is there something I should have done? Should I have proofread that one more time? Did I take the time that it took to analyze that? Those are the type of people I want to do business with. People who first look inwardly and have an honest conversation with themselves and say, what did I do wrong? What could I have said better? What could I have done better? Not to say that it's not anybody else's fault, but if you can't be honest about yourself and say, hey, I'm not always operating at a level of perfection, then we can't even get it to whatever somebody else did.
Right. 100%. 100%. I think that getting a crystal clear picture on not only who you are and what you're bringing to the table, but also what's expected of you, right? Because in every situation, we're not supposed to bring everything, right? And so even understanding the context, I think that a lot of times people may get defensive about situations when they think they're being attacked on something that is really someone just communicating mismatched expectations.
When you see real CEOs in action, it's amazing because they have to take a lot of risk and they have to measure those risks. They have to know what there's something they need to focus on and something they need to accept and move on, right? And their ability to figure that out and displace it and figure out what's the things that we really need to do a deep dive, and those things that we got to keep pushing and keep rolling and keep moving is absolutely amazing. Yeah. CEOs don't worry about every single problem. They accept them and they move on and they say that's just a part of doing business. You're going to win some days, you're going to lose some days, you're going to go up and you're going to go down. But at the end of the day, we cannot try to fix every single problem. Sometimes we have to acknowledge that, hey, the shipment didn't get delivered, the thing got broken, we didn't have a successful event, the attendance wasn't what we expected to be, there was an accident on track, whatever that is. But the circus continues to have to perform, right? And we've got to continue to move on to the next play. We've got to move on to the next. We've still got employees that expect to get paid next week. Right. We still got fans who expect to come to a race. We still got a TV audience that wants product. CEOs realize how to use that, acknowledge what happened, but then figure out what are we going to do about it to move on and continue to be successful. And you have to do that in your own life. But you got to be able to be honest about it. Have the integrity of knowing, okay, this is what occurred. Now, how do we recover and continue to move forward? Right. So many people are stuck in neutral, stuck, paralyzed, unable to move, unable to come up with the next play, unable to come up with the next move. And so they just stay in what they think is a safe space of I'm not going to do anything. And I hope I'm not going to have to spend any money. I hope I'm not going to break anything. I hope nothing goes wrong. I hope I'm not end up in jail. I hope everything is good because I'm just not going to do anything. Right. That is not typically a good recommendation because even if you sit still, the floor can fall from beneath you if you are lying to yourself about who you are and what situation you're in.
Yeah, and when you're in that place, you stay in survival mode because you're the thing that I put here, and this really comes full circle. The piece is profitable because what you were saying about CEOs don't deal with every situation. That's literally during my meditation this morning. What I was really thinking about is like you can't fight every single battle. The larger and the more influence you have, it's actually likely the fewer decisions that you're having. But that's why peace is so profitable, because you're not dealing with all of these little minor things that's sucking up your conscious. And to be completely honest, it's about focusing on the facts. Yep. Right? Like these people who focus on problems and really create problems out of thin air are most of the time not focused on facts. They're focused on opinions and delusion. Yeah. And like you said, a CEO makes sure that they are keeping their head above water so they can see where things are going and aren't constantly just under there dealing with all the things below the surface. So I think that's super powerful.
And it can happen when you're well-meaning. Like, I don't want people to hear this and go, oh, he's talking about somebody else. No, I'm talking about me. I'm talking about you. What do I mean? You say you want to grow your career and you want to get involved in the community. So you volunteer for multiple boards and take on 1 million assignments. And before you take on those assignments, people ask you, do you have the capacity to get the work done? Do you have the capacity to do the project? And at the time, you say, of course I do. Now, nobody but you knows that you have 2-3 kids at home with sports and homework. You've got your own job. You've got these other organizations that one organization doesn't. You've got all these other requirements, but you haven't been honest with yourself that you don't have the time. You don't have the time. It doesn't matter that you weren't trying to be a bad person and you weren't trying to be evil, but what that does is that collapses upon everyone else who's around you. Either your kids suffer, your spouse suffers, the organization suffers because you weren't honest about, you know what? This is really not a good time for me. I don't have the capacity. I don't have the resources. This would be a great opportunity. I really want to do it, but I need to say no. Number one thing, recommendation that you will get from any mentor is know when to say no. Know when you just don't have any more capacity to do well at that, plus all the other stuff you got on your plate. Be honest about it.
Yeah. That's dope. We're at the tracks. I'm gonna completely switch lanes. I'm gonna completely switch lanes right now. I want to talk about NXG because every conversation that I have with you, it becomes increasingly clear to me, and especially now that you said that, a large part of your purpose is paving the way for others, right? And creating not just through your life and through your decisions an example, but literally creating a road for others to enter into these spaces and professions. I know people that were trying to get into law school and you wrote them letters to help them get into law school, all kinds of things. And this was before I even met you. These are like my mentees that you were helping, you know? And so I got to thank you for doing that and not just saying it on this show. No. But I definitely want to talk about NXG and kind of let our listeners know what that is and how they may be able to get involved or get people that they know involved.
Thank you, Mike. Next Gen Racers, NXG Youth Motorsports, founded by Coach Rod Reed and a close friend of his, Charles Wilson, who passed away from cancer. But they were racing out, they were actually in the sport, competing. Charles was a racer. Rod was finding the financing and backing, and they were out trying to compete. And during the process of their efforts, they encountered a lot of racism, a lot of challenges as 2 African-American men in the sport. And they committed to themselves that they would create a program that would create a path so that kids who look like them would not encounter and face some of the same challenges they face. And so 17 years ago, they founded NXG Youth Motorsports. It's a STEM program that provides STEM education on everything from tire pressure, to the mathematics of racing in terms of time and speed. Talks to them about the engineering aspects. They actually do a project where they actually take apart part of an engineering block and put it back together. And they do that. And then after the kids take that class, they spend about 3.5 hours racing go-karts that go 55 or 60 miles an hour, right? So the go-kart's the shiny object to get them interested in STEM. And it's for kids 11 to 15 years old, boys and girls. And dynamic program. My son competed in the program, did it for 4 years. Last year, he was driver of the year. Now he works as a paid member of the NXG crew, which is great. It's nothing like telling your son that there's a check on the table with his own money to spend, and just seeing his reaction to be able to do that. But NXG, it's been a pivotal part of our community. And the brand new news is they are building a facility that just got approved by the City County Council. They're going to buy property to build a facility with radio control cars being the focus there. Racing and building radio control cars, which is big in the community now and growing. Drones, building, learning to operate drones, which, as you know, there's a great career in that for young people, and working and building on the go-karts. NXG races here. They race at Purdue, and we have a race in Detroit. Nice. So we have about 240, 250 kids here that we serve, and then another 200 or so kids that we serve up in Detroit. Phenomenal program that has the 100% support of Roger Penske and Penske Entertainment. We give those kids behind-the-scenes access to everything that goes on in IndyCar. They get treated like kings. Kings and queens. They walk around with their race outfits, suites during the Grand Prix, tickets to all the events. The drivers talk to them. They know them, building their confidence with the expectation that, yes, they could become a driver. But what we're really looking at is, what about marketing? What about sales? What about learning how to sell sponsorships, guest services, logistics, transportation? We give them career access to everybody here so that they can know, if you're interested in being in racing, one day maybe you could be the lawyer for the track. You know, it's thinking about those other aspects. So that's really big with what we're trying to do. And then we're building with our IMS Productions crew to teach kids how to film moving objects using NXG, right? We're building with our golf course and using kids in NXG and then exposing them to turf management. Then we take a kid and pair him with our timing and scoring team, and he learns how to do timing and scoring, which is a 6-figure job straight out of high school. And we actually had a kid who did that, and on the Indy 500, on the day of the Indy 500 this year, he was doing timing and scoring for the race. He hasn't even started college yet.
I hope somebody just wrote that down.
So NXG is a phenomenal program for access and exposure. Again, it goes back to my feeling that we cannot have spaces and places that we don't feel like we belong because we're Black or we Latino. You have to feel like and know that every place you go is a place where you can go and you can succeed and build a life and build a pipeline. Because if that's your passion, then that's what you're going to do. Yeah. And if people tell you that's a no, then what's left? A bunch of stuff that you're going to complain about every day and say, I hate this job. So that's what I really love about NXG.